Okay, so I want to start today with a bit of a simulation. If you can, just close your eyes for a second.
hmm
I want you to picture yourself in a room. It could be, a classroom with those awful fluorescent lights, or maybe a big open plan office.
And you can hear that hum of other people working, focusing.
Exactly. And in that room, you are trying. I mean, you are trying harder than anyone else there.
You're spending this massive amount of energy. It feels almost physical, just to keep your focus on one single thing.
It's like you're holding onto a greased rope over a cliff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Internally, you are just pouring out willpower to stay afloat. But, and this is the part that gets me. While you're fighting this silent war inside your head, what does everyone else see?
They don't see the rope.
Not at all.
They see someone just staring out the window or clicking a pen. They see someone who hasn't started the work yet.
And that disconnect, that's where the judgment comes in. The words we've all heard, lazy,
Careless.
disorganized, or the one that really truly stings. You're just not trying hard enough.
And that one hurts because it just completely denies the reality of what's happening. It creates this huge gap between the internal feeling, which is maximum effort,
Mm-hmm.
and what people see, which looks like, apathy.
Yeah.
And that gap, that's where the real damage is done. We tend to talk about ADHD in these logistical terms, lost keys, forgetting appointments, the squirrel moments.
Yeah, the sitcom version of it.
Exactly. But today we want to go so much deeper. We're going to unpack the hidden battles, the actual architecture of a brain that works differently, and what happens when that brain runs up against a world that just doesn't get it.
And it's that collision that is so fascinating to me. Because the core idea we're exploring is, it's kind of heartbreaking, actually.
It is.
It's that the deepest damage from ADHD isn't the condition itself. It's not the wiring. It's the trauma and the stigma that build up around that wiring over a lifetime.
It's like a secondary infection.
Yeah.
It's what happens to your sense of self-worth when the world keeps telling you in a million tiny ways that your brain is just wrong.
So to really understand that, we have to start with the machinery, the biology. Because when you look at the mechanics of an ADHD brain, it becomes so clear that this isn't a behavior issue.
No, not at all. It's structural. And to really get it, let's look at the prefrontal cortex. If you think of your brain as this big, busy office, the prefrontal cortex is the CEO. It's the manager.
Okay, so in let's say, a neurotypical brain, what's that manager doing all day?
The manager is at the big desk directing traffic. They're saying, file this report, ignore that phone call, hey, regulate that burst of anger, we're in a meeting. It handles all the executive function.
Prioritizing, planning, all that stuff.
Right, and impulse control, which is huge.
So in the ADHD brain, is the manager just bad at their job?
No, and this is such a critical point. The manager is brilliant. They are highly qualified. They know exactly what to do, while they keep getting locked out of the office.
Locked out.
Or they just keep stepping out for these long unauthorized coffee breaks. The
Yeah.
connection is just intermittent. So you have this office full of capable, creative employees. Your thoughts, your ideas.
But there's no one in charge, so it's just chaos in the cubicles, brilliant people running around bumping into each other because the command structure is offline.
Absolute chaos.
Yeah.
And it's not the employee's fault. The door to the manager's office is jammed.
Which brings us to the chemicals, right? We have to talk about dopamine, but I feel like most people, myself included, kind of misunderstand dopamine. We hear pleasure chemical.
Right, like it's a cookie you get for doing a good job.
Yeah.
But in this context, it's better to think of dopamine, norepinephrine 2 as the ignition system.
So it's not the reward at the end. It's the spark plug that starts the engine.
Precisely. Imagine you have a race car.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to drive. You have the map. You really want to get to the store. But the fuel line has a huge leak.
Okay.
You can stomp on the gas all you want. You can have all the willpower in the world. But if the fuel isn't getting to the engine, that car is not moving.
That is a really powerful image. So when someone with ADHD is staring at a blank email they need to send, and they physically can't start.
It's often because there isn't enough of that neurotransmitter, that fuel, to bridge the gap and initiate the action. To an outsider, it looks like defiance. But on the inside, it feels like paralysis.
It just totally reframes the whole laziness argument. It's not that you won't drive, it's that the car is stalling.
Exactly.
But it's not just about focus. There's this whole other side of it, the emotional side, that feels like it gets left out of the conversation.
It absolutely gets overlooked.
Yeah.
We focus so much on the attention part of ADHD that we forget the regulation part. For that, we have to look at the limbic system.
The brain's emotional center.
Yeah, the amygdala, the hippocampus. the more primitive parts that handle fear, anger, joy.
And I've heard this described as an emotional amplifier.
That's a perfect way to put it. In a neurotypical brain, the prefrontal cortex, our manager, has a direct line to the limbic system. So if you feel a surge of frustration, the manager picks up the phone and says, hey, calm down. It's not a big deal.
It turns the volume knob down.
Right. But if the manager's locked out of the office,
Nobody answers the phone.
nobody turns down the volume. So an emotion that might be a 3 out of 10 for someone else hits the ADHD brain like a 10 out of 10. Emotions don't just tap you on the shoulder. They kick the door clean off the hinges.
So the highs are higher, but the lows are just crushing.
Everything is louder. Everything feels heavier. And because that regulation system is faulty, the reaction is instantaneous. There's no buffer.
Okay, let's just pause and survey this landscape. We've got an intermittent manager, a leaky fuel tank, and an emotional amplifier that's always on.
That's the hardware. It is a physical, measurable difference in the wiring. This isn't philosophy, it's just biology.
But, and this is the term, we don't live inside our brain scans. We live in the world with deadlines and rules and other people. What happens when you drop that specific hardware into a society built for neurotypical hardware?
That's where the tragedy starts. That's where the stigma begins to grow.
It's the daily grind, isn't it? The little things. You forget homework, the teacher says you're not applying yourself.
You miss a deadline, your boss says, you just don't care about this job.
You have an emotional reaction and your partner says, you're overreacting, you're being dramatic.
And just think about that, the cumulative effect. If you hear that one time you think, oops, I messed up, it's an event. But when you hear it every single day for years,
that stops being about what you did.
yes,
It becomes about who you are.
it shifts from action to identity. The internal voice changes from, I made a mistake, to I am a mistake, I am broken, I am not good enough.
That's the echo chamber, which leads to this concept that I found just so painful to imagine, rejection-sensitive dysphoria, RSD.
RSD is huge. It describes this incredibly intense, almost physical pain in response to perceived criticism or rejection.
Physical pain feels like a strong term.
But it's accurate. Brain scans show it lights up the same neural pathways as an actual physical injury. So a casual comment, a slight change in someone's tone of voice, it can feel like a dagger.
So if your boss just emails, hey, can we chat later? A neurotypical brain might just think, okay, wonder what's up. But someone with RSD.
They might instantly spiral into, I'm getting fired, they all hate me, my life is over.
It sounds extreme when you say it out loud, but their nervous system is reacting as if a tiger just walked into the room.
So you're walking through life on a social minefield. You're constantly scanning faces and tones, trying to avoid that pain.
Which is exhausting. And it brings us to the most crucial part of this whole thing. We have the biology, we have the shame, but here's the twist. The stress of living like that actually circles back and physically damages the brain.
This is the vicious loop. You have to explain this mechanism because this feels like the big aha moment. Okay, so we know that chronic stress releases the hormone cortisol. It's the fight or flight chemical.
Right.
When your brain is flooded with cortisol for a long time, like when you're constantly terrified of messing up, two things happen. First, it strengthens the amygdala. The alarm system gets bigger and more sensitive.
The panic button gets larger and easier to press.
Exactly. But at the same time, and this is the real tragedy of it, cortisol is toxic to the prefrontal cortex. It weakens the connections in the very part of the brain responsible for executive function.
Wait a second. The prefrontal cortex? That's the manager.
That's the manager.
So let me get this straight. The part of the brain that's already struggling to focus and regulate is being actively weakened by the stress of being criticized for not being able to focus and regulate.
You got it. The shame and criticism physically erode the brain's ability to do the very thing it's being criticized for.
That is maddening. It's like yelling at someone for having a broken leg, and the sound of your voice is literally making the fracture worse.
It's a perfect analogy. And it creates this downward spiral. More criticism, more cortisol, worse executive function, more mistakes. More mistakes.
More criticism. Wow. And yet, you still hear people say things like, oh, everyone's a little ADHD sometimes.
I physically recoil when I hear that phrase.
I'll admit I've said it. I lost my keys. I'm so ADHD today. But seeing this cortisol loop,
Yeah.
that's not just an annoying phrase. It's actually a form of gaslighting, isn't it?
It really is. It dismisses a physiological reality. I mean, think about it. Would you ever say to someone having an asthma attack, hey, everyone gets out of breath sometimes?
No, of course not. That's absurd. One is situational. The other is a chronic condition.
Precisely. It's a mechanism failure.
Yeah.
Telling someone everyone's a little ADHD invalidates their struggle. It tells them their problem isn't biology, it's a character flaw.
And that keeps the cortisol flowing. So if you're living in this world, how do you survive? You have to mask.
Masking is the primary survival strategy. It's this constant, elaborate performance to appear normal.
What does that actually look like? It's more than just sitting still, I assume.
Oh, it's a full-time job. It's checking your pockets 10 times for your keys. It's writing down every single word someone says in a meeting because you can't trust your memory. It's suppressing the urge to fidget until your leg aches.
You're just paddling like hell under the surface to look calm.
And it drains your battery completely. Masking uses up all of that limited executive function fuel. So you might get through the workday, you might look like the perfect employee, but you come home and just collapse. You have nothing left.
That leads to serious burnout.
The worst burnout, because you're effectively doing two jobs at once. Your actual job and the job of performing normalcy.
Okay, this is a pretty bleak picture we've painted. Faulty wiring, chemical leaks, a shame spiral, cortisol damage, the exhaustion of mask. It feels inescapable.
It is overwhelming, and it's the daily reality for millions of people.
So where's the way out? We can't end the story there. The healing can't just be take this pill, can it?
No. Medication's a crucial tool. It helps fill the fuel tank, but it doesn't undo years of shame. The real path to healing starts with the very thing we're doing right now.
With understanding.
With validation. Validation is medicine. When you truly, deeply understand that your brain is wired differently, not broken, something in your body changes. You can start to turn the volume down on that amygdala.
You stop the shame spiral. You can look at the leaky fuel tank and say, okay, I'm not a bad person. I just need a mechanic.
Yes. And that shift reduces cortisol. It literally stops the damage to the prefrontal cortex. You're creating an environment of safety inside your own head.
And it's also about reframing the narrative. We've talked all about the deficits, but this wiring has strengths too.
Huge strengths. The ADHD brain is often unbelievably creative. It's innovative. I mean, if you don't have a rigid manager filtering every single thought, you make connections other people would never see.
And hyper-focused.
Right. When that fuel line finally connects, when something is genuinely interesting, the focus can be like a laser beam. They can work for 12 hours straight on something they're passionate about. It's not a lack of attention. It's a dysregulation of it.
So a real treatment plan is holistic. It has to be.
It has to be. It's therapy to unpack the trauma of being called lazy your whole life. It's coaching to build external structures to support that internal manager. It's about learning slowly to replace that inner critic with a compassionate coach.
One who knows how the car actually works.
Exactly.
So let's bring this all home. For the person listening now,
Yeah.
maybe they have ADHD or they love someone who does. What is the single most important thing they should walk away with?
I think we have to go back to that person in the room we started with.
The one trying harder than anyone else.
The final truth is this. ADHD starts in the wiring, but the deepest wounds, the ones that truly define a life, come from the scars of being misunderstood.
So if you're listening, and this is you,
The shame was never yours to carry. It was placed on you by a world that didn't understand the user manual for your brain. You are not broken. You're just driving a different model of car.
and if you don't have ADHD, if you're the boss, the teacher, the partner,
Then your job is compassion. Stop judging the output and start trying to understand the incredible cost of the input. When we see ADHD for what it is, a difference in wiring, not a flaw in character, we don't just help people get through the day. We stop that cortisol loop. We actually allow their strengths to come to the surface.
it just makes you wonder how much human potential has been lost, how many creative, brilliant minds have been crushed under the weight of that lazy label.
And how much better everything would be if we just handed them the right tools instead of more judgment.
Something to think about, definitely. The next time you see someone staring out a window, maybe they're not checked out.
Maybe they're fighting the battle of their lives. Look deeper.
Thanks for this. This was a really important one.
My pleasure.